friend. You know, anyone who knows Steven and Eddie, they were the greatest story of all time, came out of their early years. So I want to turn over to Eddie to say a few nice words, and then we're going to ask Christina to come up and kind of say a few words as well. So.
Did you know that?
First, on behalf of the family, I wanted to thank everyone who has shown Christina and the girls love this week. All of you who have stopped by, brought food, sent a text, brought drinks, sent a photo, or just came by to share a cry with the family, thank you very much. The waves of people and expressions of love and support did not go unnoticed or unappreciated. It was great to witness. On behalf of Christina and the family, a huge thank you. So who am I and why am I here? My name is Ed McCarthy, and Steve was my best friend. To simply call him my best friend is clearly an injustice and way too trite of an attempt to explain what we shared. But more importantly, the term falls woefully short in describing the impact he had on the arc of my life. I met Steve when I was 18 and working for the White Sox. When I was 19, we moved into an apartment in Bridgeport together, and that's when the real fun began. As I tried to pull together some thoughts in this post that occurred to me to most people in my situation, are probably asking themselves questions like, where do I start? And what fun stories can I share that could paint a picture of our loved one? But I found myself asking myself, where do I end it? Other people in this situation would think to create a loving litany of the things that their loved one had done, lives touched, and charities involved, years of coaching, professional accomplishments, and friends made. And I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to retell stories, as most of you have heard them already. And knowing Steve, you may have already heard a slightly different version of those stories. Maybe that will better each time. The real story I'm going to try and share is the story of what happens when life gets commingled with Steve's for 36 years. And although the last thing I want to do right now is try and be funny, I know Steve would be let down if I didn't at least try. So that's who I am. Why am I here? There's a very simple answer to this question. Many years ago, when Steve was planning his engagement to Christina, one day in the car, he said something to me along the lines of, you know you're my best man for this thing. To which I replied, I'll only agree to be your best man if you agree to be mine. To which he replied, I won't agree to that unless we also agree to make a pact right now that when one of us dies, the other one has to give the toast at the funeral. Now, a large number of my memories of Steve have gotten fuzzy over the years. But I remember this conversation clearly because over time it kind of turned into a running joke between us when we would go to funerals. And whoever finished their eulogy, I would look over at Steve and say something like, 6.5. Maybe 7. And I'd say, the one you're going to give at my funeral will be way better. He once told me that he hoped he died first because giving a toast at my funeral would be too much for him. And that's why I'm here. Now, as an aside, I'm pretty comfortable with the microphone. If you're in a hurry or have someplace to go, just need to take a break. Just raise your hand and give my attention, and I'll be glad to insert another intermission in this post. There are so many things that I learned from Steve, I couldn't possibly name them. Some of those life lessons shaped the very core of who I am. Other lessons were just useful insights on how to be a better version of myself. Early in our relationship, I learned more elementary type lessons, and they got more meaningful and insightful as we got older. One early lesson I can recall is Steve telling me it's not appropriate to wear a sweater to a wedding. I actually bought my very first suit with Steve. I learned from Steve that just about anywhere is an appropriate venue for a dance party. As an aside, if the venue actually has a dance floor, then it's best to get out there early and often, regardless of your ability to dance. I learned to defend a position on an argument without letting the conversation get personal or judgmental. No one could argue like Steve with such passion and conviction, just for the sake of a lively discussion. And anyone who shared a dinner with the Kents know this. I witnessed interpersonal and social magic from Steve. No one could work a room and turn strangers into friends faster and easier than Steve. He was genuinely curious about people and he authentically cared. His personality was contagious. It almost seemed tangible. I never met a person who could walk into a room and change a party just by showing up the way that Steve could. Some things I learned from Steve were the ramifications of bad decisions. Like beating up cars. No one could use cars like Steve could. I saw the beauty and power of remembering details about everybody. Remembering your name and where you were from was a given, but Steve could remember siblings' names and schools attended, kids' ages and birthdays, and any difficulty that they may have faced. I could stand here and talk about all the beautiful things Steve was, and we all shared literally for hours. So instead of this going forever, it's fair and not a stretch to say that much of who I am today is a direct result of my time with Steve. The high-level course of Steve's life was similar to mine, only he tended to do things first. He worked at the White Sox before I did, started working on the trading floor before I did, got fired from the ballpark before I did, traded before I did, got married and had kids before I did. He found work and began careers after trading before I did. At each one of these milestones along the way, I was the beneficiary of Steve's keen insights in navigating the ups and downs of all of these things. I remember a time years ago when I was struggling with one of my own career decisions. I took Steve up on an offer to go to a beer and talk about it. And as I told him how I was let down by some of my career choices I may have made, Steve would do something that seemed effortless to him. He would cut through the wall of worry that can cloud clear judgment and say something profound. I think I was complaining about not exactly being the captain of industry I had anticipated, and he stopped me and asked, "Have you forgotten that you get to choose how you will be remembered? This is not out of your control. If you're not the CEO, it doesn't matter. It just won't be the way people remember you." It was personal, insightful, on target, and exactly what I needed to hear at that moment, but that's not why I bring it up. The real story is that wasn't a one-off. Steve had the ability to affect people like this all the time. He was quick to mingle supportive and loving words with a joke or just a plain observation. He made complimenting people sincerely a habit, and those compliments came easy and often, and was just one of the many reasons why he was so loved. He coached those 8th graders for so many years, but he was also a coach to anyone lucky enough to be close to Steve. I couldn't stand here and talk about Steve if I didn't mention the core fabric of who he was, and that was his family. Madeline, you were the gift your dad couldn't live without. Your magnetic personality, warmth, and ability to sincerely engage people was clear when you were so young, and over time it's become a cornerstone of who you are. Your dad always talked about how naturally intelligent you are, and he seemed to believe that no matter what obstacles would come your way, your intuition would always be on target. You have these and many other gifts, and you made your dad so proud of you. Catherine, your dad was beside himself with pride when you graduated from South Carolina. He talked about that letter that you got for getting all those A's in college. Your determination and dedication to whatever your task at hand may be was amazing to your dad. Your dad seemed to have complete confidence in you and your ability to figure everything out, and you made your dad so proud of you. Mary Rose, you made your dad so happy. He talked about how much fun he had visiting you at school. He loved your friends and was so excited that you seemed to be able to make so many friends so easily. He was so proud and happy to share those pictures of you on your trip to Europe, sitting in that pool in the desert or riding a camel, just living your best life, having a blast, and creating those memories was a huge deal for your dad, and you made your dad so proud of you. And Lily, I see so much of your dad in you. Your ease, poise, and control in social situations is identical to your dad's. You have the ability to not only interact, but make sincere connections with those lucky enough to be around you. You are smart and funny and witty and just plain fun to be around. And those are just a few of the many traits that you share with your dad. And you made your dad so proud of you. Hey, Christina. You took the 4 walls at 421 Malden and made it a home. You created an environment where your children and Steve thrived and knew that they were loved. You made Steve so unbelievably happy. Your life with Steve wasn't always easy. Like every marriage, it gets complicated and there can be difficult days. I wanted you to know that whenever I talked to Steve about whatever challenge he may have had, what I remember thinking was that if things got hard and Steve needed you, you delivered and you were there. I think if your belief in him ever wavered, it would have crushed him. And because of the person you are and the depth of your personality and your love for Steve, it never did. Your faith in him meant everything, and he loved you so much. I see so much of Steve in all of you, and I really hope that you will continue to be as loving and welcoming to me going forward as you have always been. I love you all and look forward to seeing what life has in store for you. Now, I couldn't mention Steve's family without including his son. Steve and I saw about 99% of the world the same, so much so it was like they're the same person. But this was not the case. He brought that puppy home that he found, literally rescued, in the middle of the hood on some brutally cold winter night. It was this adorable little furry ball that was playful and cute and snuggly. And in 6 weeks, it transformed into a 70-pound sled of meat on 4 legs that was about as company to strangers as a King Cobra. I told Steve that Bush was a bad idea about 12 times, and then I gave up. And not long after, I realized how wrong I had been. All the Kents loved Butch, and I think I'm projecting here, but I think what Steve secretly loved about that furry beast was how unfeelingly protective Butch is of your family. To say that I'm sad or depressed at the thought of living the rest of my life without Steve would be inappropriate. Steve's death has left me broken and forever altered. But this painful state is a tiny price to pay when compared to the overall benefit I've gained from having Steve in my life. To put it another way, if somehow God tapped me on the shoulder right now and offered me in the midst of all this pain the option to go back to 1989 and relive my life without Steve, I wouldn't do it. So what is this pain we are feeling right now? It can only be understood as a temporary price of loving Steve and receiving Steve's love. So this is my personal challenge that I want to make in front of my wife and my 3 girls, and Christina and the 4 Kent girls. This moment is not the moment that will define my relationship with Steve. What will is the 36 years of joyful memories of what happens when life is blessed by a best friend like Steve Kent. Someday I will be happy again. I will overtell all of our memories and those White Sox stories and pour the daylights out of my kids and the Kent girls again. I will talk about Steve not with tears in my eyes, but with a smile on my face and a smirk and a glimmer in my eye, just the way Steve recalled all those memories. And when I tell those stories, I will smile and laugh and be forever thankful for the blessing that Steve was in my life. That day won't be soon, but out of a profound love from one best friend to another, I promise to get there as fast as I can. And that journey starts today.